It's all about the contests and the game shows on this episode of TV News and Reviews. 3 new ones from ABC and an Amazon Prime dating show. Let's talk TV. Hey guys, Dan here. This is TV News and Reviews for the week. Welcome to Dan Reviews It, and we're going to be talking all about the contest programs for the summer of 2022 on this week's episode. The one that got away on Amazon Prime, that's a dating show, and then a trio of programs on ABC as part of their Summer Fun and Games Claim to Fame, which is hosted by 2 of the Jonas Brothers, and it's about basically people being relatives of somebody famous, and the other contestants in the house have to try and figure out who that famous relative is. And then we've got Generation Gap pitting young people against their grandparents, and then the final straw, which is basically a large version of Jenga. So we're going to talk about all of that, but of course, first we do the news, so let's start there. Last week we didn't really do news because the Emmy nomination had come out, so some of this news is maybe a little bit older than I usually do, but we sort of held off on a little bit of that so we could do the Emmys last week. But in renewals, this is a very interesting one. Magnum PI has been resurrected. Yes, CBS canceled this. And I think it was the biggest shock cancellation of the season because it's very highly rated. It does, big numbers for CBS, but it's probably very expensive to film. It's in Hawaii, etc. But NBC has decided to bring back Magnum PI. And I'll be honest, I can't remember what the original Magnum PI was on, what channel. I was too young at the time, and I know some of those, late 70s and early 80s shows, but I can't think whether it was on CBS originally or not. But in any event, NBC has given a 2-season order, seasons 5 and 6. It's going to be just 10 episodes each. So really, it's the length total of about 1 CBS season. But they're going to do the 2 halves. I imagine they're going to probably film them all at the same time, and then just sort of hold off on 10 of the episodes till next year. But yeah, that was an interesting twist that I don't think we saw coming. So, all right, Evil is coming for season 4 already on Paramount Plus. Season 3 just premiered a few weeks ago, and Robert and Michelle King are preparing to wrap up their other show, The Good Fight, on Paramount Plus. That started a long time ago when it was CBS All Access. But Evil will be returning for season 4. I only ever watched the first season of this, which was the CBS season, and then starting with season 2, it went to Paramount Plus. Maybe I'll keep up with it at some point, but I really did like that first season. I believe it was in my top 20 shows of the year. Only Murders in the Building. Speaking of my top shows, this was my #1 show of last year. Murders in the Building has been renewed now for season 3 already. Season 2 just premiered a couple of weeks ago. It is the most watched comedy on Hulu. There's no surprise there. It appeals, I feel like, to all demographics because you've got Steve Martin and Martin Short. You've got Selena Gomez for the youngsters. And then, you've got just all this buzz around it. So anybody that knows anything about TV wants to watch this show. The CEO or whatever of Hulu said that it is the true crown jewel of our slate. And he didn't even specify comedy, so really, I believe that. I feel like Only Murders in the Building probably has gotten more people onto Hulu than most other things. I know my parents were interested in it because of that show. All right, Loot is coming back for season 2. I just reviewed this, I think it was last week on Apple TV Plus. Season 1 is only half over because Apple rolls out the once-a-week slate. But obviously they're enjoying the return so far on that. I gave Loot, I think, a B. I saw a lot of potential there, so hopefully it gets better as the season goes, and then season 2 will be even better. And then The Bear, already renewed for season 2. Now, this one I reviewed last week as well. It is one of my top shows of the year. It was an A for sure. And so very, very excited. That is coming back for a season 2 already. Now, they dropped all the episodes at once, so people were able to binge that one, which is, Hulu doesn't usually do that, I don't think. I think usually it's the one a week strategy, but whatever, they decided to drop The Bear all at once, and I think it paid off because a lot of people were talking about that show. And in terms of series endings, The Time Traveler's Wife is done at HBO after 1 season. No big loss there. I did not review that very favorably. And then this is very interesting. I don't know if this is going to be a final series ending because the show has been produced already. But Chad season 2 never aired on TBS. Either the night before or the day of, TBS said, you know what, we're going to pull the plug on this show. We're not going to air season 2 of Chad. They had been promoting it. I don't understand what the logic is here. I know that Warner Brothers is restructuring. We've talked about this a few different times since they bought sort of the Discovery channels and stuff. So they now own Discovery Plus and they own HBO Max. They already owned that. And obviously all the TV channels that Warner's has owned for a few years now. TBS, TNT. I think there's a couple other like pretty big ones. But they really have been getting away from scripted shows. We've talked about this several different times that, a certain show that was supposed to air on TBS or TNT, they have canceled or pushed aside to HBO Max or whatever. And with this one, I don't know. I mean, they still own the show, and it has been produced. It obviously, was about to air. So where are we going to see Chad? We don't know. Now, I didn't really love the first season. I think I gave it a C or a C+. So, I'm not really that concerned with where this particular show ends up. But it is interesting that they were promoting it and sunk this money into the marketing of the show. And then at the last minute, at really the 11th hour, just said, no, thank you. We're not going to run this. So, I feel bad for Nasim Pedrad. Even though I didn't love the show, I always liked her on SNL. And, this is kind of her baby. She created it. She produces it and stars in it. So, very, very disappointing day, I'm sure, for her last week when they announced that. All right, in terms of some new shows to announce, we've got Kate Winslet returning to HBO. Of course, she was the mayor of Easttown. We love that show. And she is going to now star in and produce a limited series called Trust for HBO. It's based on this Hernan Diaz's best-selling novel. I'm not familiar, but the novel unfolds using 4 different voices and 4 genres. So I assume the show will stick to sort of something similar. So it could be an interesting twist on your normal drama here. But from what we know about it so far, this I guess follows the book. A wealthy financier reads a novel based on his life and is upset with how he and his wife are portrayed. So he hires his secretary to ghostwrite a memoir for him in hopes of setting the record straight. And she, however, becomes aware that he's trying to rewrite his own history and his wife's place in it. So obviously a lot of intrigue going on here, perhaps a mystery. And Kate Winslet, is just one of the best around. Mayor of Easttown was fantastic. So looking forward to that one. And then Beauty and the Beast is gearing up for its 30th anniversary, the movie that is, which I guess technically wasn't that 1991. I guess the 30th anniversary already happened, but maybe with COVID, things were shuffling around. But I feel like, yeah, it definitely was, because 92, which would be the 30th anniversary now, was Aladdin. That was the Disney movie out that year. So, but anyway, they're doing some 30th anniversary a year late, I guess, on December 15th. So that's going to be one of their big Christmas specials on ABC. It will air the next day on Disney Plus as well, if you don't see it live. And it's going to combine live action and animation. So I don't think it's necessarily a retelling of the story. Like, I don't know if it's necessarily the whole, live thing, live theater thing that they've been doing lately around Christmas time on the networks. I do know that the R&B star Her is going to portray Belle in this. They just announced that today. So John M. Chu, who produced In the Heights, he is going to produce this program. But yeah, other than it being like a live action animated hybrid, I'm not really sure what else to expect. We're still several months away, obviously. But could be interesting. I'm a big fan of Beauty and the Beast, so we'll see what that's about. All right, in some other odds and ends, we have some ratings to tell you about. Netflix ratings. Oh, yes. Stranger Things Season 4, of course, is, really the biggest thing around, and really could be the biggest thing in Netflix's history. So listen to this. Season 4 has racked, and this counts both halves. They did the first half, and then a month later, or 2 months later, they did the couple episodes for the second half. But Season 4 has racked up 1.15 billion hours of viewing for the first 28 days. So that's actually for the first 28 days. So that's just for that first batch of episodes, actually. It's the first English language show to reach 1 billion. Squid Game hit 1.65 billion, so it's still got a little ways with that 28 days. But it is very likely that the final part of the season, which just dropped, combined with rewatches of the first part, are going to just obliterate that. You know how many people I'm sure watched that second half just from, talking to your friends and looking on Facebook and stuff. But all of the seasons are currently in Netflix top 10 shows, which, they do that, I guess, every week. But season 4 was already setting records with, listen to this, 5.14 billion minutes of viewing in its first week. And that joins only Tiger King 2 different times and Ozark, both of those during the early days of the pandemic. But then the week after that, the week after Stranger Things 4 premiered, the second week, and that combined, of course, rewatches or whatever from that first week, but the second week had 7.2 billion minutes of viewing, which is the first time a show even got over 6 billion, and it jumped to 7.2 billion. So, listen, this show is a juggernaut. And what's funny is it's not even counting the first 3 seasons of people rewatching that. It's just the 4th season that they're focusing on for these ratings numbers. It's insane. So we haven't quite hit 28 days yet for season 4, part 2. And usually the streaming ratings run a few weeks behind anyway. So we probably won't know for another 3 or 4 weeks, what the final 28-day tally is for that. But just unbelievable. It's Netflix's biggest show, I guess, of all time, really, by that metric. So, all right, a couple things in reboots and spinoffs. Beavis and Butthead is finally returning. We've talked about this years ago, actually, because it was going to return on Comedy Central, but then Paramount Plus, which does, Paramount owns Comedy Central, but they've decided to shift a few of their properties, like some of the Nickelodeon reboots, to Paramount Plus, and so that's where Beavis and Butthead are ending up. And they just released the movie Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe, which I graded very favorably a few weeks ago. But August 4th will be the premiere date for the new episodes. There's 2 new batches of episodes, I guess 10 at a time. So we'll see the first season of that on August 4th. And then Criminal Minds returning for 10 episodes on Paramount Plus. This is something we talked about a little bit ago, because I think it got the green light a year and a half ago, back when it was still CBS All Access. But now it's Paramount Plus, and yes, most of the stars are going to return. Joe Mantegna, Adam Rodriguez, AJ Cook, Kirsten Vangeness, Aisha Tyler, and Paget Brewster. They're all going to return for the new season of Criminal Minds, and that's on Paramount. So, all right, enough with the news. A lot of stuff to cover there, but we only have 4 shows to discuss, so I think this will still be a fairly quick episode. But the first one's going to be the one that's not on ABC. We'll start with Amazon Prime and their dating show, The One That Got Away. Like I mentioned up top, this is going to be sort of the contest show, the game show special for the new summer shows of 2022. And The One That Got Away is a dating show hosted by singer-songwriter and I guess internet star Betty Who, whom I'm not really familiar with, but apparently I guess she's big enough to host a show. And the series follows along with 6 different people searching for their soulmate, and in the process basically giving them opportunity to reconnect with some people from their past that they possibly had a missed connection with, people that either they dated long ago and it didn't work out, or they just sort of, they knew from a different event or whatever. And the producers track these people down, and they come through this sci-fi-esque thing called the portal, and nobody knows who's coming through. But then they get there, and we are explained then by the contestants who this person is and whatever. I'll be honest, I'm not positive from the first couple episodes what the end goal is, other than just pairing these people off. I don't think they're going against each other. It might be a little bit more clear. They could have made it more clear, but I don't think they're going against each other for like who's the most successful, pairing or whatever, because I feel like you could just fake that for the cameras, right? But I think they just want to see how many people they can get reconnected with some of their old flames. And there's, the typical stuff of reality shows. We have people that come in starting in episode 2, additional people start showing up, and so now the contestants have to decide, okay, which one do I want to go with? Then it becomes sort of more of like a bachelor or bachelorette kind of thing. But the twist here is interesting with the people from the past, because it certainly got me thinking, who would I want to see come through that portal? Who are people that I would not really care to see? Things maybe didn't work out for a reason. But it definitely got me thinking about my own past, and okay, if I were on this show, how would I react if so-and-so came through or whatever. So it is kind of interesting in that aspect. Look, I'm not huge on dating shows, but I do review them from time to time here on the show if, you know, it's something that's getting a buzz or something with an interesting twist. And when I heard this, I did kind of think that is kind of new. That's something we maybe haven't gotten before. So I do applaud that. I do think they're using the typical camera techniques and story framing for these kinds of shows where, you know, one person really looks like a raging bee because she does not care for the person who came through the portal and they have zero chemistry. But he thinks that, like, oh, this is going great. And she's like, oh, this guy's a complete zero. So obviously there's, you know, I felt really bad for the guy. And I'm not sure if that was the point. It seemed like maybe they wanted me to kind of laugh at him and be like, oh, haha, you loser, you think this is going well. But I felt bad for him, so I'm not sure if I had the intended result there. But it is interesting to see the people interact with people from their past and how either quickly they connect or how much of a struggle it is to kind of find topics to talk about, whatever. And then, you know, the people are staying, I don't know if it's two separate houses or if they're in just two completely different parts of the same house. I think it's two separate houses, but the contestants are staying in one part, and then the people from the past, people that came through the portal, are staying in another part. But some of them are sharing rooms and stuff, so obviously they're talking about, oh, you know, here's what I think of your guy or whatever. So it's an interesting sort of social experiment show. I wish the contest aspect of it was a little more clear-cut. I'm not positive if there's, you know, the goal just to get one last couple standing or whatever. But certainly got me thinking about some interesting things. So I will give the one that got away a B-. All right, up next is Claim to Fame. This is on ABC. The next three shows are part of ABC's Summer Fun and Games. And listen, they've got a lot of shows to come up with because they've canceled several of their shows. And I don't know if I realized this because I feel like I would have talked about this in renewals and cancellations at some point. They are not bringing back The Hustler, which is one of my favorite contests of the last couple of years. It was so much fun. Great guessing game, good mystery. But that has officially been canceled after that season 2 that aired earlier. I guess was it even this year? Or was that last fall maybe? I forget, but it had 2 seasons total. And then they can't really bring back the match game because Alec Baldwin hosted that, and obviously he's got you know, a lot of things going on with you know, that shooting on the set of his movie and all of that. So I'm pretty sure that's why they didn't bring that back. And then I also read that they are not bringing back Card Sharks. So that's out too, the Joel McHale hosted show. So unfortunately, my favorite show of last summer in terms of game shows and stuff is not coming back apparently. That's Crime Scene Kitchen. I haven't read that it's officially been canceled, but we're halfway through summer and they haven't aired it. So I'm going to assume at least it's not coming back this year, unless maybe they have it on schedule for the fall or something, but I don't think they do. So I think that might be over. So we've got 3 new shows on ABC to look forward to, and they vary wildly in my grades. So first up is Claim to Fame, though. This is hosted by Kevin and Frankie Jonas, and it's kind of a fun concept. It's basically, I think I don't know if there's 10 or 12. I think there's maybe 12 people, and they all have a famous relative. And at the beginning, they do the whole 2 truths and a lie thing. So they say what their relationship is. So, oh, you know, my celebrity is my grandmother, my niece, my sister, whatever. And then they say what they're most known for. Oh, they're an actor, they're an athlete, they're a singer. And I should say, the final one is what their biggest award has been, their biggest achievement, an Oscar, an Emmy, Walk of Fame star, whatever. But one of those things that they say in the beginning is a lie. So we, the audience, have to try and figure out who it is. We know some of them. Some of them are being told to us by the people themselves in sort of the talking head moments. But more importantly, the people in the house have to figure out who is related to whom. And then the last one standing gets, I think it's $100,000 prize. And it's kind of fun. We only know, as I've seen the first 2 episodes, I think that's all that's aired so far. And we know of 3 of the people, or maybe 4 of the people in the house, but other people are still a complete mystery, even to us, the viewer. And it's kind of interesting to see the ones that we do know, you know, the people in the house going around and talking amongst themselves, making alliances and saying, oh yeah, I think it's this person is related to him or her. And sometimes they're dead on and sometimes they're like way off. And at the end, basically, whoever lost the challenge of the day has to unmask someone, or not unmask, that's Masked Singer talk, but has to reveal who they think is the famous celebrity person of whoever they choose. If they're right, then they get to stay in the house and live another day. But if they're wrong, then they go home immediately, and the person that they were trying to pick out gets to stay in the house to live to the next episode. So it's pretty fun, and honestly, in terms of these 3 shows on ABC, as far as sort of mindless, fun entertainment goes, I would say this is the best of the 3. It's been enjoyable. Now, I love a good guessing game, so there's certainly a few people on here that I'm like, okay, I have sort of ideas about, but don't know yet. And so it's kind of fun to sort of play that guessing game along with them. For example, the person that they sent home this week, and I'm not going to spoil it, but they came up with some good clues that I wouldn't have thought of. And I'm not going to say if they were right or wrong on who the person was, but it was somebody I was not even thinking about, and that kind of got me thinking. So it's fun. It's sort of like The Masked Singer in that way, I guess, a little bit, because we're getting sort of droplets of clues along the way. I do think the clues are a little more straightforward here than in The Masked Singer. But the other reason that I just think this is a cute concept is because Frankie Jonas is known as Bonus Jonas. He's not in the Jonas Brothers. He is the littlest brother of the clan. I think when the TV show started, he was 7 or 8. I mean, he was very young. But obviously the Jonas Brothers have stood the test of time here. They're still making music after like 15 years. And I just think it's cute that he is hosting it with sort of the one in the band that doesn't really have much of a solo career, doesn't have much going on. So it's Kevin Jonas and Frankie Jonas, sort of the Kevin's own, or Frankie's own claim to fame is being the little brother in the Jonas Brothers. So I think it's cute. But anyway, I kind of like this show for mindless entertainment for the summer. I think this is a winner. It's a B+ for me on claim to fame. Next is Generation Gap. This is hosted by Kelly Ripa, and it's based on a series of, I guess, like bits that they would do on the Jimmy Kimmel Show, which of course is also on ABC. And basically, when I think of Generation Gap, I think of sort of just one generation younger, so my parents. But they went 2 generations, really, and it's the grandparents playing with the grandbabies. And the kids are like between about 11 and 13, and the grandparents obviously range, in the 60s and 70s. And basically they are trying to figure out how much the one generation knows about the other generation. Maybe it would be a little easier if it was just parents and kids. But this offers up some fun answers because nobody really knows anything that's happening. I will say that, like, in the first episode, there were so many questions that just, like, I'm thinking about my nephews who are 17's the oldest, but then, like, the other 4 are all under 11. They're between, like, 11 and maybe 6. And thinking about, like, what my nephews know about Mr. Rogers or the Rolling Stones or, an abacus. Like, I think this is geared to make people sort of like look foolish on TV, and they do come up with some funny answers as they like attempt, and sometimes they get close, like the one woman thought Thanos was Thor. I'm like, okay, you've got A, the first 2 letters right, and B, it's all in the Marvel universe. They didn't accept that answer, but I mean, at least she was kind of in the ballpark. But I have the feeling this would have been better as sort of a half-hour show. One of my problems with the ABC Summer Fun and Games is they're all hour-long shows. Not everything needs to be an hour, people. Back in the day, other than The Price is Right, every single game show was a half hour. And now, you've got Let's Make a Deal. They made an hour on CBS, which used to be a half hour. And all of these, like Press Your Luck is an hour on ABC. And I like that because they do sort of a new bonus game for the winner of the first half hour. So, okay, that's fine. But like Match Game, they would just play 2 games. Card Sharks, they would just play 2 games. Celebrity Family Feud, they just play 2 games. Not every show needs to be an hour. And this, we're looking at the same 4 contestants for the whole hour, playing these different games, and it drags on for me. And there are different games in each episode, so I will give them that there's a little bit of variety there. But the other thing is, I don't actually think Kelly Ripa is that great of a host, which is funny because she's an excellent host on her own talk show. She was a little better in the second episode. So maybe she just needed some time to, you know, sort of find her footing in that regard, and kind of, you know, the first episode was just sort of a warm-up. But it's different hosting a talk show and hosting a game show. And I just thought she was a little bit ill at ease with some of the stuff. So, yeah, overall, I mean, it was kind of enjoyable to watch. I definitely got some laughs out of some of the silly answers from both sides of the generation. But at the end of the day, this is just too long of a show. They needed to kind of chop it. And I don't even care if you do 2 half-hour episodes like they do with, you know, the Match Game and Card Sharks and stuff. But an hour with the same contestants is too much. And then the final thing is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen on a game show. They take like a toddler from the family, like a 4-year-old or 5-year-old, and they offer it up, whatever the winning team is, they offer it up a car or some little silly fun prize that a kid would want. The one in the second episode was a Paw Patrol video game machine. And without the family's help, the little toddler has to go up and pick, oh, do you want the car or do you want the little, you know, toy for the... It's the stupidest thing. So, of course, they're going to pick the little toy, you know, and Kelly Ripa gets a big laugh out of it. But I don't know. It's, that part's stupid. So, overall, this was very middling for me. I got some laughs out of it, though. I will say that. But I'm going to leave Generation Gap with a C. And then finally, we've got the final straw. This is basically a large version of Jenga. It's hosted by Janelle James from Abbott Elementary. You got to keep everything in the old ABC family, right? Kelly Ripa hosts the one, you know, Janelle James hosts this one. But there's 4 different teams in this show that sort of compete against each other in elimination style. And there is a $250,000 prize at the end, or it's one of those where it's up to $250,000. You're never really going to win that, but you could go away with a pretty hefty chunk. I think in the first episode, the winners got maybe $100,000. So definitely not bad. But basically, they are removing objects one at a time from a giant topple tower. You know, leaving it unstable enough to topple if you move the wrong thing or whatever. So basically, it's just a giant Jenga game. And here is my big issue with it. It's just incredibly repetitive. It's like a lot of those shows, like, I think I reviewed Ultimate Tag at one point for Fox a couple of years ago, and it was the same thing. It was like, yeah, they mixed it up a little bit, but it was like, it's basically the same thing every time. There's no trivia questions here. There's no, really even physical challenges. It's just, you get up, you figure out which one you want to take out, and then you remove it. If it topples, your team loses. If it keeps, then okay, we go to the next team and see what they can do. It's, I think, incredibly dumb. You know, I mean, I don't mind playing Jenga like at my house, but it just, this didn't work at all for me. It also is another one that really does not need to be an hour. My God. You know, I think Who Wants to Be a Millionaire probably started that trend back in, what was it, 1999, I suppose. Because, again, like I said, every game show at the time was only a half hour except for Price is Right, which Price is Right needs to be because it's really, you know, 6 different games and then the wheel and then the final showcase. There's a lot of things going on in Price is Right. But then Millionaire was an hour, and so then all the primetime game shows had to be an hour. Deal or No Deal, The Weakest Link, and that sort of continues to today. Some of them can hold that format very well. I think Deal or No Deal actually did it pretty well, even though that was pretty repetitive too. But this one, it just is so repetitive. We're doing the same thing. And then the host, Janelle James, I love her on Abbott Elementary. She's one of the shining moments from that show. But she is very, very uncomfortable, I think, in this position as host. That's my other huge problem with it, is the host and the voiceover. So they have this, you know, giant panda come out and sort of sweep up things and whatever. And they pretend that it's Peyton Manning in there, because at the end of the first episode, he takes off his panda mask, and it's Peyton Manning because he's one of the executive producers. But there's this voiceover guy, much like the Domino Masters used Joe Buck for their voiceover guy. This voiceover guy basically is trying to emulate that Joe Buck delivery, but much worse. And once again, just like Lego Masters, and I had a problem with it, or not Lego Masters, Domino Masters, I had a problem with it then as well. It's so painfully obvious that that person announcing is not anywhere even near this set. They're just watching the tape and sort of commenting on it. But Janelle James is like interacting with the person as if they're there. It's very painfully staged. And her sort of delivery, you could tell she is uncomfortable. She is stiff as a game show host. So she definitely should stick to the Abbott Elementary stuff for now. But yeah, this is a very bad show. I can't say much more good about it. I'm going to give the Final Straw a D. So a wide smattering of shows this week, from B+ to D. I do think Claim to Fame, I'm going to keep watching every week. I'm going to see, who's the celebrity people. But all right, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week on TV News and Reviews. Bye.